Well, good morning. I apologize. I wish this was an April Fool's Day prank, but I am battling apparently poor internet. So I'm rebroadcasting. We are live right now, but this time, if things go down, I'm going to continue to just simply continue on with the show, and I will record and upload if I have to. So, with that, let's get back to the recap of session number 2. Early in a previous episode that I've already deleted, I was going to address and kind of go over our second session in our Integrity of Scripture Bible Conference. We covered that on Thursday night, and I was going to go over it on Friday, but we ended up not doing a show on Friday. The basic premise of it was we were going to look at the textual evidence for the flood and whether or not the flood is to be interpreted as a global flood worldwide, as the traditional view is, or a local flood. And modern Christianity really has kind of gotten weak-spined on that, and they have started holding more of a local view, that wherever Noah was and his family, this was a local type event. It was not worldwide. And we looked at the textual evidence. Is there grounds? Are we able to build a case that the flood was to be interpreted as a local event that did not cover the entire earth, but simply, I guess, kind of washed out the area, the people that lived around Noah? And that has kind of been the way it's been presented by a lot of the apologists and some of the theological academic elitists. And we investigated, and the fact is you do not have the grounds in the Bible to build a case that the flood is to be interpreted as anything other than a worldwide flood. Time and time again it said all flesh, the entire earth, the hills, the high mountains, all of it. So with that, if you were to go to my website, you can find that on markbazeministries.org. And let me get that pulled back up for you so you can take a look at it. So here it is, session number 2, the evidence and purpose of the flood. And you have the notes for that. And furthermore, if you go down to the bottom, as I'm going to start doing with all my sermon notes now, you can click on Notes PDF, and then there's a PDF for you that you can print off if you would like to have it laid out, or you just maybe prefer reading it that way. I do need to be better about not including the bold print there. The bold print simply is a cue for my slideshow that goes along with the session, so you can ignore that. And, whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Now, if you go back up to the top here, the sermon video link, if you click on that, that will take you over to Worshipify, and you have session number 1, and you have session number 2. So you can click on session number 2 and be able to watch the second session. Session number 3 will be up tomorrow, so you will get to watch that. And I really enjoyed this session. I think that the topic of the flood, and I really enjoy covering those kind of topics, the topics that not a lot of preachers teach on, and not a lot of preachers are willing to give a defense for. It seems like we have really bowed the knee to modern science, and modern science tells us that the earth is billions of years old, therefore we don't even make the attempt to try to interpret Genesis literally. And I think it's a big mistake. And the reality is you have both internal evidence that the flood was a worldwide flood, but you also have external evidence as well. I think that science needs to answer why the fossil record is so built upon the case that you had a massive amount of life being buried all at the same time. Because once again, fossils do not just form. If you take a deer and you shoot him and you clean him and you leave the remains, the carcass, the rib cage out in the field, it's not going to become fossil. It's going to get eaten. Fossils result from animals being rapidly buried, great pressure being applied, and then the soft tissue being replaced with rock, essentially. And that's an oversimplification, but that's pretty much how it works. You have the hard sediment that replaces where the soft tissue once was when the void is made. So, we looked at that. We also looked at the purpose for the flood, which I thought was also very interesting, and the fact that we have often in Christianity, the Nephilim are something that is so often overlooked and not talked about very much in the Bible, especially modern evangelical churches. They really don't even make an effort to study it at all. But the Bible in the Old Testament, and this is partly because we don't study our Old Testament anymore, but the Bible makes a big deal about the matter of Nephilim and what they are, who they are, and most people have no context understanding what these ancient men of renown, mighty men of old were. And furthermore, if we would understand it, it would help us be able to give a defense. And I didn't get into this in the session because there's so much about the Nephilim that we do not have, that I did not have the time to cover in that session. There's so much about them. But whenever you see God telling them to go in and wipe out every man, woman, child, that sounds very, very dark and quite a, I don't know how else to put it, but kind of a horrifying thing. Yet, if you look at the context, these people were descendants of those Nephilim. And so these were not people who had an eternal soul in that sense. They were not mankind as we know it. They were very much this transhuman type, really monstrosity. And I don't know why it seems to be that on our second live stream, everything seems to go so much better. But anyways, it's almost like the first time around, the internet service just doesn't want to do it, and then maybe the second time around it does. All right, now, as we go on from there, I really liked it. Be sure to watch it. Let me know if you have any questions. I probably left a lot of things out, but session number 3, I will upload that, and you'll be able to watch it tomorrow. And it is over, obviously, dinosaurs in the Bible, but it's really a study also on the age of the earth. And how old is the earth really? Are the current means of scientifically measuring the age of the earth actually valid? And what about the gap theory? I think it's something worth considering. I know some of you that watch this, you take a great interest in the gap theory and considering it as a legitimate possibility. So we explored that, talked about it. The gap theory is something that I want to explore some more. I will save kind of my thoughts on that for whenever I do the recap on session number 3. But session number 2 was very much like session number 1, a defense of literally interpreting the Bible, just letting the context be what the context is. The flood is treated as a historical event, the way that it's written. There is no room, there is no reason for us to take that account and try to make it some type of fairy tale. And once again, so many of the big mainstream Christians today have taken it and they've said, well, we don't have to stand on Genesis as being actual history. It can serve much more as a parable, if you will, some kind of metaphorical illustration. And it's just simply not the way that the Bible's meant to be read. You do not have the right, we don't have the liberty just to say the Bible is meant to be read or interpreted however we want it to be. It is what it is. It's God's authority, so we are going to have to stand our ground on that. And we don't need to bow the knee. We don't need to buckle under the weight of those who would say none of the evidence supports it, because I think that the evidence there is quite spotty in many ways. On session 1, I saw some of your comments that Nancy said you listened to session 1 and you're looking forward to the rest of it. I hope you enjoy it. Honestly, I think maybe session number 2 is my favorite out of all of them. Just like I said, the flood and the defense of it and the Nephilim are so interesting to me. And there's so much to the Bible that I wish we knew the whole story, and I'm sure we will one day. But I really did enjoy that. That was a fun one. But all of it's fun. I think that if we're going to defend the Bible, we've got to start at the beginning. We can't just jump into the Gospels and start defending the resurrection. I think that makes us look not as strong as what we could be. And I wish that we would not be so intimidated by the academic elitists. I wish we wouldn't be. And once again, when it comes to the gap theory, I don't want to get too much to it, but why are we so quick to just take Genesis as figurative instead of considering what the gap theory has to offer? Whatever position we hold, whatever doctrine, whatever theology, it needs to be based upon the Word of God. It does not need to be something that is a result of allowing man's opinion to twist, alter, change, shift the way that we interpret the Bible. God's Word is the sole authority. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, let's talk about, of course, our amazing president and leader who announced that there was going to be another holy day as opposed to the actual holy day that we, and obviously I know we live in the liberty of Christ and we don't have the law, but that's where we get holidays from, holiday, holy day. It's a day of remembrance. It's a day in which we gather at church. It's always on a Sunday to celebrate the resurrection. So you understand where I'm coming from with this here. You're not obligated to observe a holy day for sake of salvation. It's merely the way that we remember the resurrection and celebrate it. So the day that we observed Easter this year landed on March 31st. And this also happened to be the day that they had already previously decided was going to be the Trans Day of Visibility. And I think many people probably thought, well, they actually just created this day specifically on Easter. That's not actually the case. This day has existed for a few years, but in a way that almost makes it worse because they created that day, the federal government did, to give visibility to trans people, even though it seems like every single month has some kind of day dedicated to people of, strange confusions and ideologies. But in a way, it almost makes it worse because they knew that probably looking ahead, I don't know, maybe they didn't. Sometimes you think that they're malicious, but let's just give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they scheduled it, back in 2021, not realizing that in 3 years the Trans Day of Visibility was going to land on Easter. Maybe so. Maybe we can give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't know, but March 31st is kind of Eastery time, isn't it? And they just had to have a day of transgender visibility right around Easter. It's convenient. So, with that, they did have their Transgender Day of Visibility. And the reality is, even if they weren't being malicious by it, they really proved that they were making a point. Because if you went on X, right, Twitter, what used to be, Joe Biden had this small 2-sentence statement about Easter. Happy Easter, everyone. May God keep you and bless you. Something very vague, didn't say anything about the resurrection. But a few hours later, he has this big fancy post about Trans Day of, what is it again? Visibility. And it's clear. They are not trying to hide the ball. They want you to see what they're doing. They want you to realize that they are making this day a bigger deal than what they are making Easter. And they're acting as if Easter is not something that the vast majority of the nation acknowledges as a serious day of remembrance. So it really was a slap in the face of Christians. It really was a great insult to us. And so it's infuriating. It really is. But why are we surprised? They're not hiding the ball. They've shown us time and time again what they really hold as sacred. And what they hold as sacred, it's not the traditional Christian values. It's not the death, the burial, the resurrection. It's not church. It's not family. It's none of that. It's the agenda. It's the ideology. It's the message. It's their own holy war that they fight. And we just got to realize it. They are going to, every single year, make the effort to downplay the celebration that so many Christians observe, participate in. They're going to downplay it. And we just need to realize that is going to be the new normal. So many new normals have been put in place now through their activity, through their efforts. It's incredibly frustrating, but that's where we're at. And I think that we just got to realize this is going to be the new normal. The new normal doesn't matter. It can be Christmas, it can be Easter. Those are really the only 2 days that just everyday Christians observe. I know you've got Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, fill in the blank, that may have extra days. But those are the days that we really observe. They've already gone after Christmas. They've sought to take away the Christian aspect of it. Obviously, you saw where the White House said no Christian symbols at the White House for Easter. And so that's going to be the way that they're going to handle it from now on. So just get used to it. You are not going to get the backing of the powers that be. Now, with that, you will see occasionally, possibly, if we ever have another conservative president, then the White House will promote a Christian view of Easter, a Christian view of Christmas. You'll see that, but that's if a conservative is in the White House, and when, I don't know. You would think, based upon how things are going, there's a good possibility after 2024 there'll be a conservative in the White House, but who knows? Who knows what may go on between now and then? All sorts of things could take place. And so now, as we go forward here, let's see. We have a few other things that did take place. I want to talk one more thing about this matter. The day of transgender visibility, it didn't seem like a big deal to us in rural America. And probably those who didn't go out on the town, you stayed at home, you went to church, you met with your families. It didn't seem like anybody cared. But did you know that our Empire State Building in New York City was lit in the rainbow yesterday, and it wasn't pastel colors for Easter? I believe also there was Niagara Falls was in rainbow. The reality is, even though it may not seem like it's a big deal to us where we live, because thankfully we're in an area that's not heavily influenced, it does go on. And what happens out there, what happens over there, will find its way here. It's not like transgenderism was founded in southeast Oklahoma. The ideology had to start somewhere, and it found its way here. That's the way it is. We do not live in a vacuum. So I want us to think about that as well. Whenever we talk about defending the faith and the family, I am very much let each man take care of his own home. I don't want the government to have all this power, all this authority, and I think that we just need to be left alone. But that is only true so much, because you cannot be just left alone if there are those out there that actively believe you need to fundamentally redefine marriage. You need to fundamentally redefine men and women and the role of mothers and fathers, because they really believe in what they're doing. And it is going to eventually find its way to you, because their problem is with you. You are the problem. So they're going to take it to you. Even like the most libertarian who thinks that they have not infringed on anybody's rights and they have told the liberals time and again, you can do what you want, they're going to find that those same people that hold to those ideologies will be at their door demanding of them that they bow the knee to their ideology. That is just how it works, because for them, it truly is a matter of liberty. They are the liberators. They want to completely rid society of all those old ways of the past, because if you hold to the ways of the past, then that means that you do not agree with their agenda. And their worldview does not allow for disagreement. It doesn't. They require your obedience. They demand that you are obedient. I don't normally sip on coffee during the course of the show, but today it kind of helps. A lot of speaking that I did yesterday, and I know that we're having some issues right now. If you're watching, I understand maybe if you want to hop off, but rest assured, I will get this uploaded to YouTube, the full episode, and it will be on Worshipify as well. It's strange, I don't know. Looking at our data, the data all looks good. Like this should be a data rate that we should be able to handle just fine. But I'm going to continue to try to figure out what to do with this. We'll get there. We'll get it all figured out. We'll get it all taken care of. Rest assured, we're not giving up. I saw Carol's comments, Satan working hard to keep you from bringing us God's word. So glad you don't give up. There ain't no quitting us around here. We're going to fight till the very end. Okay. Now, did you hear about this story in Tennessee? As a terrible act of protest on Easter morning, somebody brought a trailer load of Bibles up to a church and lit them on fire. And obviously an act to offend Christians, to protest them, to just show their ire for the Christian faith. And here's the reality. Once again, you can tell what our country, the powers that be, hold sacred. Because if on the same day, Transgender Day of Visibility, somebody would have taken a trailer full of pride flags and set them ablaze, it would have been a national scandal. So they're already showing their hand. They are telling you what they value more. And what they value is not Judeo-Christian values. It's not the faith. It's not the Word of God. It's not the religion that the large number of Americans hold to. It's the left ideology. And we may look at the House and say that there are conservatives in the House. Barely. There's like that much of a majority. But the government shows its hand again and again, every single time. The media are owned by those who hold to the left-wing ideology. The institutions, they're given over to the left-wing ideology. So nobody is going to make a big deal about this trailer full of Bibles being burned, because that's fine. And it's good. It's a good act of protest. But if you burn their holy symbol, then that's a big problem. It really is. It's just like a religion. It comes down to matters of theology. The pride flag is the religious flag for them, and the Bible is a pagan, false book to them that needs to be burned. That really is how they view it. And so they're not going to say a thing. And once again, shame on the Pope for not disavowing our president at this point. It's just, I mean, the president doesn't have to be Catholic, but if the Catholics are going to uphold any kind of standard, they need to have some backbone and just openly proclaim, this man does not represent us. He does not represent our ideology. He does not represent our doctrine. And some of the archbishops have, some of the priests have, but until Pope Francis gets up there and he disavows Biden and basically, what's the word? I don't know what word that the Catholic Church uses. Excommunicates him from the Catholic Church. We're not going to take y'all seriously. What are your standards? And him getting up there day in and day out saying that he's a devoted Catholic, it's a serious slap in the face to Catholicism. It's an insult to them. I'm not even Catholic, but I feel insulted for them in that matter. Okay. Now, one other thing I want to mention, and this is kind of random, and I was hoping that I could respond to some of your comments, some of your questions. If anybody is still in the live stream, that's great. I understand, though. Like I said, we are certainly fighting our internet here today. But maybe we'll have some time to talk some questions. But I thought today'd kind of be a little bit of a lighter day, not just covering and doing a whole lot. But, you know, something I want to mention is The Lord of the Rings is a really good trilogy. And it has just some fundamental things that our society has absolutely abandoned. And you can tell. The reason why modern movies are terrible is because the men are not real men. They have to be humiliated. They have to be made made emasculated. The women have to act like men. They try to make women the action heroes and act and dress and talk like men. People just don't like that. Everything has to be ambiguous. There really is no good side or bad side. The good guys, I don't know. They've done some shady things, and the bad guys, well, they're just kind of misunderstood. But if you look at the Lord of the Rings, it's a classic story of good and evil. And I think that's one reason is because J.R. Tolkien, he was Christian. I think he was Catholic, but still had the Christian worldview, at least. And in the Christian worldview, there is good and there is evil. There is morally right and there is morally wrong. And Christianity stands for men being men and women being women. And it's just so refreshing every time my wife and I watch this. My wife loves Lord of the Rings. Every time we watch Lord of the Rings, it just reminds me there was a time in Hollywood when men were depicted as men, and that was considered the ideal type of man. I mean, for example, take Aragorn, who was the rightful king to the throne. A lot of ways, there's some Christian typology there. He resembles Jesus in some ways. But he had integrity, he was honest, courageous, he was faithful, he was bold, he was capable. I mean, all of those qualities. Think about how they depict so many men today. They're weak, they're pathetic, they're liars, they're cheats. And the women were women. They were graceful, they were womanly, they were submissive to the men. They did not act like they were in charge or belittled the men. They accepted the men as the leaders. It's refreshing to see. And we don't have that in our society anymore. We have gotten so far away from that. We want to completely abandon the traditional picture of men being men and women being women. And I think that, once again, we sometimes talk about complementarianism. It really is. The qualities of a man and the qualities of a woman complement each other, and it really is a wonderful thing. And you can see the amazing way that God organized the relationship between the man and the woman, the marriage, the children. And if we can once again kind of recapture the idea of good and defending what is true, standing against evil. And the world is, I would truly say, not as gray of an area as we like to make it. In modern times, we have really liked to depict the world as having a whole lot of gray area, that it's really hard to know for sure what exactly is right. They'll try to do that with abortion. They'll try to do that with IVF. They'll try to do any number of ways to make everything morally ambiguous. It's not really. Men need to be men. You need to be honest, stand for truth, fight against evil, protect what is good. Women, you need to be lovely, nurturing. And by lovely, I'm not talking about you have to look like a movie star actress or anything like that. A woman can really deteriorate her looks based upon how she behaves. And truly, the jewel is a woman that's pretty inside and outside, right? And you can affect so much about the way that you look by how you behave. And I think that's true for men as well. Sometimes it seems like the young women struggle to pick good men, but your inner character really matters. So, ladies, be lovely. You can have a beautiful, beautiful character, and you would be surprised at having a beautiful character can also make you be even more beautiful on the outside. But be loving, be nurturing, and stand for purity. The women in the Lord of the Rings, they're almost, I don't know what the word to use is, but they're almost somewhat otherworldly in the sense of they are pure, they're good, they speak with so much grace. And nowadays you see girls and women they talk with a lot of, I don't know, filth, I guess. One of the things that was kind of disheartening to me in March Madness right now, in the basketball college playoffs, you're used to kind of seeing guys use foul language, but even the girls now, if you see like a cut scene to them in slow motion, you'll just see them using really foul, ugly language. And what kind of society is it whenever those that are supposed to be lovely, supposed to be kind, supposed to be pure are acting in some of the most ugliest of ways? So Maybe I am just a fool thinking that we could somehow emulate the ideal world that Tolkien that he put forth in his show, but maybe it's something worth pursuing. That maybe fathers should strive to be a little bit more like Aragorn. Maybe the mothers should strive to be a little more like the women in it. And maybe we can show our children that there is good and that not everything has to be confusion, that we can really know what's right and wrong, that we can truly stand for truth, we can truly stand for what is good, and we can be the defenders of that. It looks like I've been managing to hang on just a little bit. I see that we have a little bit of commentary here. See, Scott commented at the end. He said, haha, we old people remember the Hollywood of the 40s and 50s. The downfalls beyond belief. I love the old 40s and 50s movies. And I understand. I'm not ignorant. I know that back in the 40s and 50s there was foul language and mischievous type activities that people did, and certainly probably the actors that played in them were not the most upstanding of people in many cases, but at least they wanted to portray that. And that's once again kind of where I go back to, it's not always about how you live that is most important. It's about what you support and what you stand for. I've really come to think a lot about that. Like I said, there's many liberals who live a pretty conservative life, at least in the sense of they're married, they raise their children, they may even go to some kind of church. But when it comes down to what they promote in society, they just promote the ideology that says Transgender Day of Visibility on the day that we celebrate our Lord's resurrection. And so even though Hollywood, they may not have lived the life, at least they stood for, in their movies, the way they portrayed themselves, honesty, integrity, goodness, American patriotism, all of those things. What if that once again became the standard? And maybe one of these days we can somewhat recapture that, but where does it start? I think it starts with men and women being that example. Annie Oakley was a good movie. There you go. There you go. I really like It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life is one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. And George Bailey, he's not perfect. He at the very, towards the very end of the movie, he almost takes his own life, but he does the right thing in the end. And he's honest. He stands against evil, standing against Mr. Potter. His wife, lovely woman, she stands by his side. There's good, there's evil. They stood against that wickedness, and they did what was right. And so we got to get the message out there, what we stand for, what we believe in. And I thank you all so much. Thank you for your patience, enduring with me. It seems like I get into the swing of things and I run into a little bit of a bump in the road, but just bear with me as we continue to try to work all the kinks out with our technology here. I don't know if it's because we just had such a run of cloudy days or what. The great thing, so when it comes to high-speed internet that is not by fiber optic cable, which I do not have. Maybe one of these days, but where I live, that's tough. Now, maybe one of these days at the church, I could get it at the church, but I'm going to have to wait till the kids get a little bit older, because right now I can't drive to the church every day to do my daily show. But the issue is, I get it from Starlink, and the waves, the radio waves. And that really is what it is. Like, Wi-Fi is radio waves. The higher the frequency, the easier it is for that frequency, the wavelength, to get deflected, for it to bounce and get messed up. And so there's always give and take. But if I ever can land a setup where I have fiber optic cable, we'll be in a lot better shape. And who knows what the internet may do here in the next 4 or 5 years. It may not be a problem. But for right now, we're dealing with what we got, but we are not going to go anywhere. And we're going to continue to stand for what is true, what is good, what is right. Men being men, women being women. Calling evil for what it is, calling good for what it is. Because there truly is good, there truly is right, truly is wrong. Please check out my session number 2. Also my Easter service if you have not got to watch that yet. Thank you all so much for watching Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your Monday. We will not be broadcasting tomorrow because I've got to take the babies to the doctor for a checkup. But session number 3 will be uploaded so you can watch that. So I will have content for you tomorrow, and I really appreciate it. Thank you all very much. We'll see you soon.